Good morning, dear friends. Welcome. I know with certainty that today is Friday, and it is the 15th of Kislev and the 19th of November. Time just keeps on moving, whether we like it or not. And we're learning today the entire Talmud, one page, one line at a time. At this moment, Masechet Shabbos, Perek Chi, chapter 9. We're on 89B, close to the bottom of the page, which means we're about to break into the 90s. That's a big milestone, certainly for our Chabura here. And we are studying and praying for the well-being of all of the members of our Chabura and their households. And let's mention some names that we're dedicating our learning for. Leah Bas Rita, Malka Bas Rivka, Shimon Halevi ben Leah, Chaim Baruch Eliezer ben Rusa Esther. And we're also mentioning Lili Nishmas, Daniel Yerachmiel ben Gedalia. Thank you all for being here. Today, we've now fully transitioned out of our prolonged, lengthy discussion about Matan Torah, and we're back to our discussion of the smallest volume or measure of a given substance that is prohibited to be carried on Shabbos. We had a pre-recording discussion about the value, the purpose of having all these discussions, and to put it in very brief terms, this is not about a license to carry. Rather, it is about if one were to carry, do they have to do an atonement with an offering? And furthermore, it's about really understanding the definition of the prohibition of carrying, and it is usually the smallest common use for an item. And so we'll share the screen, and we'll jump right back into our Mishnah. We'll do a fast recap of the Mishnah, and then we will see the Gemara's analysis of the Mishnah. Pardon me as we get the layout to our desired format. Here's our Mishnah going through again a series of items, useful items. So we talked about wood. How much wood? What's the smallest amount of wood that would be that is considered carrying? The amount of wood that heats and allows the cooking of a light egg. We'll discuss some more spices to spice that said egg, and the different kinds of spices can combine. And the Gemara is going to discuss what that really means. We talked about the different items that are used in the creation of dyes. And again, the answer is for the smallest little piece of material that is placed on the head or the hairdo of a woman. I believe that's what we defined it. Let's see, right? A small garment on a woman's hairnet from a very small piece of material. Then we talked about laundry detergents. Today we're very lucky, I suppose we could say, although those who understand the impacts of different chemicals that we interact with understand that there's always a trade-off. But suffice it to say, I'm very grateful we don't have to have buckets of urine or these other items to do laundry. And how much laundry agents is considered a problem to carry? And the answer is, again, the amount of these laundering agencies that are necessary, or I should say agents that are necessary to cleanse this small piece of material. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it's the amount of laundry detergent that's needed to remove a stain. That was the Mishnah, in short. So again, we talk about wood, spices, dyes, laundry detergent, 4 different items. Now let us jump into the Gemara and take a look. The Gemara asks, you're talking about how much wood is a problem, and you said that it is the amount of wood that cooks an egg. The Gemara says, we know our Mishnahs, and Taneina Chadazim. This has already been mentioned once. Where was it mentioned? Maybe you remember, or if not, the Gemara will refresh our memory. Kana, there was a discussion about reeds that were used for writing. And if you recall, we pulled up a picture of how reeds were used to write on papyrus, and we saw different pictures. And over there, the discussion was that a reed was typically used for writing, or that's the smallest use. You could use it in construction or weaponry. I don't know, but you could use a little piece of reed for writing. As a matter of fact, the word kana, which means reed, also is almost synonymous with writing implement. And the Mishnah says, kana kedelasis kulmus. It's to use to write it, to make a quill or a pen. But if it was too thick or broken, Then Kedei Levashel Beitza Kala Shababeitz. And the Mishnah said it is the dimensions, the amount of reed wood needed to cook a Beitza Kala, the lightest, easiest to cook egg, which is Trufa Nesuna Be'ilfas. It has to be a scrambled egg in a frying pan, which it cooks the fastest. So, long story short, we already know that the amount of wood that is prohibited to carry, the amount of wood that's useful to cook an egg. So why does the Mishnah repeat itself? And as we know, the Mishnah really does not repeat itself unless there is something new for the Mishnah to teach us. And so the Gemara's premise is there's got to be something new to be inferred from this teaching. What is it? Mahu detema hasamhu delechazil amidi. When it comes to broken up reed, there's really nothing much you can do with it if it's not fit for writing. However, when it comes to wood, you can use it to be part of a key, the teeth of a key. You can take the little pieces of wood. Rashi says, "Shein shel mafteach." As you know, the key has those different teeth, and you really only need a little small splinter. It has to be solid, and that could be used in a key. And so maybe with regular wood, all you need is the slightest amount that's enough to be a tooth in a key. Kamash Malan, therefore, our Mishnah repeats and says, no, we do not consider the common use of wood to be for a key. The common presumed use of a small amount of wood is going to be, or I should say the smallest presumed use of a little amount of wood is going to be wood that's used in the creation of a fire to cook anything. And an egg is the thing that needs the least fire. As a matter of fact, if you live in Florida, or if you grew up here, and probably adults don't think of this, but kids have the notion of putting an egg on the windshield or on the back of a car. And especially today, I think, Mark, you'll help me out over here, but today I think most cars are made of fiberglass. The exterior is fiberglass, which is a little less heat absorbent. But even in my childhood, which is not that long ago, the cars had a metal exterior, I believe.
Oh,
and that metal really...
Too. If it's
I'm sorry?
Black, dark color, it'll absorb a lot more heat.
So I remember many times touching the top of the car and literally scalding myself. Again, I grew up in Florida and considering putting an egg and seeing how long it would take and if it would cook. And so suffice it to say, eggs is kind of the thing that we imagine as a fast cooking, easy to cook item. And that is the amount of wood that is problematic for carrying on Shabbos. Less wood than that, it's not considered carrying. You're not doing something constructive at all in the carrying of some splinters. There's not much value to a splinter. Now, if you particularly have a value and you store it, well, then that's another discussion that we brought up in an earlier Gemara. But on average, the presumed usefulness of wood is, at its smallest measure, is for cooking.
Of course, the toothpick has a function, so maybe that would be a problem.
You're asking, did we talk about that in the Gemara previously? That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
About taking a splinter off of a fence or something.
We talked about the use of a splinter. So you're making an interesting point. Why don't we talk about the use of a piece of wood for a splinter? Mark, that's a good question. I feel like it's such a good question. There's got to be a good answer. But any thoughts?
What about a toothpick?
That's exactly what Mark just said. That's what we're trying to figure out. I don't know what to tell you. Here's what I'll think. Here's my thought. Maybe a toothpick is such a small piece of wood, you're not going to carry it. Wherever you are, you'll find a toothpick. Maybe that's, but you're asking something that's interesting. And
Rabbi, if you have a toothpick in your mouth, are you carrying?
That's a good question. That's a good question. Presumably, yes. But the question is why? The answer is because you have it formed as a toothpick and you want it. But still, you're asking a good question. Someone's listening to this recording in the future and like jumping up and down saying, come on, just this. It's such a simple answer. But in this moment.
Let me ask you another question.
Go ahead.
The definition of carrying. Is carrying only carrying kederech haolam if you actually carry something, or if like a toothpick? Yeah, you don't. It's not customary to carry something in your mouth. In the same respect, I mean, if you have something in your mouth like a candy, are you carrying it?
With Hashem's help,
what is the definition of carrying?
With Hashem's help, we'll get there. But you are correct in distinguishing between a standard method of carrying and an alternate way of carrying. However, if something's prohibited from carrying as halachic halacha abiding Jews, we shouldn't carry it at all. But there is a distinction, and with Hashem's help, we'll discuss it. Good question. I'm gonna punt on that. Just
if it's the true Rosh Hashanah or just a Carmelite. So the Carmelite is a
this is also true. This is also true.
Then you have wooden clogs instead of shoes. There's a whole.
Well, if it's considered again, remember, you're allowed to wear clothing, and it doesn't matter what material it is. If you're wearing it, for the most part, you're allowed to carry it, unless there's a high degree of susceptibility of removing it.
I'll give you an example. In Israel, growing up, not every place in the beginning had an Eruv. And in order to carry a handkerchief, we used to wrap it around our collar.
Right, but why would you do that?
So to make it like part of your clothing.
But it's more than that. You did it like that. Exactly. You weren't carrying it. You were wearing it. That's a different question. Here, there's a few issues to consider. And again, I don't want to go in depth because there's other places that will talk about it explicitly, and I'd rather do it with the authority of the text and the feeble authority of my memory. But and the wearing part we discussed already. There's a distinction between carrying something kedarko, carrying something a kil achar yad or in an atypical manner, which is what I understood your initial comment, and then there is a distinction about wearing the eye. Wearing something that's wearable is not even a loophole. I mean, I guess it is a loophole, but it's absolutely kosher as long as it's an approved, halachically acceptable method of wearing.
Yeah, but nobody really, in reality, nobody during the week, nobody wears the handkerchief.
So it's a good shaila. So it's a good shaila. And I know it's coming to everyone's mind. And we're just teasing everyone with this. But for example, we have the Shabbos belts that use a key. Right to the Shabbos.
Another example, right?
And so it's actually not so simple because the key needs to be a necessary component of the garment as opposed to just strung on a belt. And I suppose, Rebbe Nachum, again, without getting into the specifics and giving all the answers, that would be the difference between carrying it as a clothing, which is not carrying at all, or carrying it in a atypical manner. If the key, and by the way, Mark is going to show us the way. If you go to the store, and Dr. Hammer, I know we like to joke about the fact that Jews commercialize everything.
And then you unhook it here,
right. So today you can go to a good Jewish Judaica store and spend $11.99 for a piece of elastic with two little hooky things at the end. And if you go to the hardware store, you could buy for 99 cents. But no judgment. But basically,
you go to one of their shows and they give you these things for free.
Right. But
I've seen tie clips that were fashioned, a key that was fashioned as a tie clip.
Right. So, but the chachma is like Mark showed us that it has to actually, the key has to be the item that connects the two. Now, again, this is not.
If you polish the key, it becomes part of the decoration. At least that's what I did when we didn't have the Erev. I made a tie tack, and I polished the brass key so it looked,
right,
like a real ornament. And
suffice it to say, we should really do chazara. We should really do like a recap on some of the previous segments. But with Hashem's help, we'll come to have additional, more elaborate discussions about the different criteria for carrying. Suffice it to say, these are all factors to consider ultimately before bringing a carbon chatas. And so therefore we should point out, and Rebbe Nachum, this is the most important contribution in addition to a series of important comments, is to realize that all of our discussions here are assuming the absence of an Eruv. And again, if there's an Eruv, for the most part, many of these issues fall to the wayside. And that's that. Doctor, you're muted right now.
Unfortunately, in those communities, whether they're in southern Florida or northern Jersey, kids who are under the age of maybe 40 know very little about what we're talking about.
No Eruv.
They just assume that there's an Eruv almost anywhere they go. I mean, they might know to ask, but after a while, they just make an assumption. It's a Jewish area, they're Orthodox people. And they really, I don't think they learn to the extent that those of us perhaps are over 40, with all due respect, Rabbi, know more than those, younger like who are born in the wonderful communities which had a room. Okay.
We are spoiled. Actually, I know that like sometimes Israeli yeshiva students come to the States, and part of the orientation is, you should know that in America, you have the shlichim that go to different communities. So it's important to, part of the orientation is that not every community, although Baruch Hashem Hollywood, if they're coming to Emerald Hills, they're going to be Baruch Hashem and Erev. They're coming here, they'd also have an Erev. But there are communities that have either small Eruvim or no Erev, and it's many times very shocking to Israelis that are younger. Those who have the privilege of being youthful, but in the way that Rabbi Menachem, who grew up in Israel a little bit before my contemporaries, well, then you shared with us Eidut Nemana that not every place had an Eruv. Then today, Baruch Hashem, that's very much less of an issue. So
luckily or unluckily, these kids usually learn. Unfortunately, the Arab sometimes is down, and then they quickly learn.
Right. All right, let's Shkoyach, gentlemen, thank you for enriching this conversation, and thank you for putting up with the frustration of not having every topic discussed at length. Let's jump into the Gemara. Let's see the next discussion. So our Mishnah talks about,
can't a tie be the same thing? As long as you're wearing it. As long as you're wearing it.
One may wear a tie. Let's jump into the Gemara, and we'll
but if you're going home and it's too hot, you can't take it off.
You can't take it off now. We'll have we'll have some more opportunities to reopen the file with Hashem's self. So, Shkaya. Tavlin, spices. The Mishnah says, "Kedei l'tavel eitz akala." It's the amount of spices need to spice an egg, to season an egg, I should say. V'reminhu, we have a contradictory brisa that says as follows: Tavlin, when it comes to spices, shnayim u'shloisha shemais mimin echad. This is in the discussion about let's read it. Tavlin, shnayim u'shloisha shemais mimin echad. If you have spices, 2, 3 different types, different names, but it's really one species. Or 3 different species, but it has the same name. Asurim, they are prohibited. Let's see Rabbi Steinsaltz. Hold on. Okay, in the laws of Arla.
Didn't we have something about spices around the neck?
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. Here we're talking about in other contexts of halacha, where there is an item that is prohibited, prohibited from being used. For example, Arla. We could actually look. Let's pull this up. Let's actually look at the citation. Mishnah, Arla, Eric Bays, Mishnah Yud. So here Arla, or here, let's see. Let's see, 3 prohibited things are divided from one another. There are 3 different types. They are prohibited for the first 3 years. Oh, okay. So hold on. So Arla is prohibited from being consumed, something that grows for the first 3 years. And there is a certain measurement to the amount that is prohibited and the amount that's considered insignificant. There are ways that spices can be insignificant. Now, can a variety of different spices combine to cause the dish to be irrevocably contaminated by Arla? So the Mishnah says that 2 or 3 different types of spices, even if they're really from the same species, or if they're different types, but they carry the same name in the store, they are asur u'mitztarfen zemza. They're able to combine. Amar Chizkiah, and Chizkiah further qualified, when can different spices combine? B'minei misika shanu hoyul u'urim l'masik esagdeir. If they're different spices that are capable of sweetening the pot. Time of the chaz l'masik esagdeir holav hachiloi. We see over here that if they have a different kind of spice, if they're savory, the different types of spices do not combine to be a single unit. And therefore, how can our Mishnah says spices can combine for the purpose of usefulness and carrying on Shabbos? That's what our Mishnah says. They do combine, all different spices combine to be prohibited from carrying. So you have a little packet, you have these pre-mixed packets of spice you can buy in the store. Or so if you make your own little baggie of different spices, the Mishnah seems to say that they combine and you can't carry it on Shabbos. But we have another Mishnah that says different spices only combine under a very distinct circumstance. Otherwise, they don't combine. Here, I'm going to hit mute again just because there's some funky sound in the background. But of course, please unmute for comments and questions. And so what is it? Do spices combine or not? And the Gemara gives a simple answer. Hachanami chazu lemasik. In truth, what exactly do you think the spices of the egg are doing? They are essentially causing the food to be more edible. I'm not sure I understand this question because ultimately, when I put it on the egg, here's my question. What's really the definition of misika, of sweetness? Does it literally mean like a sweet sugar-like taste? So that's what Rashi says. We're not talking about sweetness in the most literal sense. Askinan shekula mine misikas kedera. They're all things that improve the dish. Aval min acher, some other spices could plausibly not combine. And so therefore, ultimately, although the Mishnah seem to be saying 2 different things, ultimately they are saying actually the very same thing. Because if you're spicing your egg, probably it's because you want to improve its taste. And if you're spicing a dish and they all contribute the same value, well, then they combine for the purposes of Shabbos to be considered carrying, for the purposes of Arla, for the item to be seasoned in a way that it is irrevocably contaminated by Arla, which is prohibited from eating. But if there is some kind of spice that's not constructive for your dish, well, then most likely it won't. Most likely it won't be a problem. My dear friends, let's just take note of this milestone. We have now turned to page 90 of the Gemara. We're now in the Tzadiks. This is a big milestone. And in many Masechtas, we would have made multiple siyumim. Of course, Masechah Shabbos is on the longer side, but let's take a moment to savor and appreciate the sweetness of this moment of devotion, commitment, and constant study, practically daily study. Hashem should give everyone koyach, strength, health, happiness for the next 90 pages and for the entire Masechah Shabbos. I'm sorry, for this entire Gemara. Let us jump into the next discussion. So our Mishnah goes from wood for fire to spices, which we had a simple question about how they combine. And now we will talk about the dyeing or the stuff that creates pigment, the ingredients that creates pigment. So the Mishnah says, yes.
Bye.
Yes.
If I can maybe just go back to a minute to Beryl's question originally. So
Which
let me
is?
try.
Remind me of the question.
When he started before recording, pre-recording.
Oh, okay.
So the way I would like to maybe explain it to Beryl is if somebody intends, he says, I'm going to go out on Shabbos and I'm going to carry with me less than the minimum amount. If he does that intentionally, he's chayav. So it's not a question of finding a permission to do something. If he does it even less than the minimum, he's chayav.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so
Yeah,
sure.
no, he is. This is only a question of enshogeg. If somebody carries something with him by mistake, if he walks out and all of a sudden finds himself in the middle of the street with something in his, I mean, the rabbi I would expect the rabbi to say whether I'm right or wrong. But it's only a situation where somebody by mistake finds something in his pocket. Then the question comes up, how much is there? If he did it in shogeg, whether it's chayav korban or not. If it's less than the minimum, then he's not chayav. If it's more than the minimum, there's chayav. But if he did it intentionally to subvert the prohibition, then he's chayav, period, no matter how much he carries him, even if it's less than the minimum. Am I correct, Rabbi?
You are correct. And actually, you're referring to an important discussion that we did touch upon, which was about chatzi shir. If you have less than the full measurement, is that anything at all? Is it a problem? Remember, we had a place in the Gemara we talked about on a fast day eating less than a shear. And so you are correct that intentionally carrying of any amount is a problem. You might only be chayiv the consequences, the punishments, if you have a shear, whatever that shear is. And here we're talking about shogeg, and the question is being in carbon chatas. That's been the primary premise over here. Because it's a shogeg, have you done anything at all on the books? If it's less than the shear, no, you have not. Again, it has nothing to do with a license to do anything. But the point, and even more so, it's plausible that if you have a specific use and you actually store your spices in little minuscule tablets, well, then maybe you would be chayiv even for that smaller amount. And did that answer the question, Doctor?
Well, my issue then, just to complicate it a little bit, so it's over the minimum amount. Do you have to get rid of everything then, or could you say, "Oh, I'm, that amount over"?
You're talking about the dish. You're talking about the dish or carrying on Shabbos?
The carry on Shabbos.
Well, again, that's back to Rabbi Menachem's point, which is intentionally. Yeah. I don't believe you. Intentionally, you shouldn't carry any amount.
Right, but so it's not intentional. So now you realize.
Correct. So if you're doing it unintentionally, you're not going to go measure it and say, "Oh, now it's below the measurement in the Mishnah. I can carry it on Shabbos."
I got a whole bag of candies, and it's not good. Can I keep not get about it in my mouth? Can I keep 3 so when I get?
But that's intentional, and that's not the premise of our.
Right. In other words,
the problem is all of these licenses, quote unquote, are not helpful if you actually need them.
Right.
So Rabbi,
Rabbi, do me a favor. Let's cover a little more Gemara, and then at the end, let's discuss it.
It's fine. The question will remain.
It's going to remain a question. Maybe I'll find you an article or something that will give some further background that will make it more palatable.
I brought it back up. I apologize.
No worries. The shells or the shell of a nut, the peel, the rind of a pomegranate, stace, upua, safflower, and madder, which are all items used in the creation and the production of pigment. How much of that is constructive? How much of that is useful for a person? Well, I shouldn't even say it. What is the measure that is prohibited to carry? It's the amount of peel that creates dye for a small garment. That is the statement of our Mishnah. Again, we're going to find a conflicting and contradicting text in our tradition. A Brisa teaches, Hamoitzi simonim shiruyim. If you carry these stuffs, you carry the pigment that's soaked in water. How much is prohibited from carrying? The amount of pigment used to dye a dugma le'ira, a sample for the shuttle of a loom. That's what Rabbi Steindl says. Rashi says, Ma'at semer shukim dugma. It's a little bit of wool that's used as a sample. Shemara tevel bal habayis kazeh tachboitz oy kazeh. You're hiring somebody to do a job, to make you a garment or something, and so you want to choose. You say It's a very, very small little loop that's placed on a loom. It's a very small amount. And so the question is it the amount of stuff that creates pigment for a whole little baguette, or even for a small little strand of wool? They are very different dimensions. So you might recall the answer, because we asked this question once before. Itmar Allah, the answer that's presented on this question is as follows. These two texts are not a contradiction. Why? A person doesn't bother to go through the production of a dye for just a sample. But now that you've already produced the pigment, you might carry enough pigment for a small sample. So there's a difference, in other words, between raw materials and the finished product. A person is not going to bother themselves to go through the whole process for a minuscule amount of pigment. But now that you've created a pigment, a person might transport even a small amount of pigment. That is, the Gemara is asked and answered. Our Mishnah is talking about that the ingredients have not yet been introduced to the water. If you want to do the process, you want to cook pigment, you're not going to cook up dye that's less than the dimensions of the smallest garment. All right. You knew we were going to get here. So our Mishnah has so far gone through wood for cooking, spices to season food, the ingredients for pigment, and now we're getting to the laundry segment of the Mishnah. And so the very first of the laundering ingredient, the items used for laundering is mei raglayim, urine. So the question is, what kind of urine is helpful here? We're very spoiled and privileged that we would be repulsed by the notion of using urine in a common everyday function. But once upon a time, human beings did not have that convenience. And so, Tana, what kind of urine is good for laundry? Mei raglayim, a Mishnah teaches, a Brisa teaches, ad ben arbayim yoim. It's only potent. It only has a cleansing effect till 40 days. After 40 days, urine loses its edge. This is what the Brisa teaches us. Neser. What about natron? Right? I think that's what we said. It was natron, yeah. Tana neser alexandrius v'le neser anpantrin boris. I'm sorry, neser anpantrin. When we talk about natron, not all natrons are created equal. Natron from Alexandria, that's good. Natron, that's good for cleaning. But neser that comes from anpantrin, anyone know where that is? Actually, instead of doing that, we should just do this. Hold on. No? Well, Rashi tells us it's a place. The fact that Rashi tells us that it is a place is probably indicative of the fact that it's not a super well-known location. That's the next statement of the Brisa. Then the Mishnah continues, Boris, which is Borit. We don't have a definition. What is Borit? Rav Yehuda Zechol. Rav Yehuda says Boris means sand. V'atanya, that's a problem because there's another Brisa that lists Boris alongside with sand. V'atanya ha-Boris v'hachol. And if they're listed as two separate items, they cannot be synonymous. Elamai Boris. So the Gemara says, can we redefine what is Boris? Kabrisa. It is sulfur. Although that's not what it's. It is sulfur. So what just happened here? Our Mishnah talks about 4 items that are used for laundry, and we brought a brisa that elaborates that, again, urine only works for 40 days. Natron is only a specific natron that comes from Alexandria. Boris means sulfur. All these items can be used in cleaning and in laundering. Suffice it to say, Tosfos
By
points
the
out that
way,
it's
I Googled what natron means. And usually today, natron is sodium, but in the natron, from what I understand from Google, it's sodium bicarbonate. So that would make sense as far as something as a cleansing.
as I recall, Dr. Beryl and Alan, is Alan on? Yeah. Last time we talked about natron, I think we just you shared with us the same, right? Because
Yeah,
we have some people,
sodium bicarbonate.
yes, and we confirm
Baking
that is,
soda.
and we confirm that baking soda has cleansing properties.
Oh, yeah.
So you see, you need to have people with the chemistry background if you want to learn, if you want to have a shear. We need two because, you know. All right.
Actually, today, many toothpastes, sodium bicarbonate is used as an ingredient.
It's
Interesting.
also great for a mouthwash, doctor.
But it doesn't taste so good.
Rabbi, are you suggesting that drug dealers are supportive of the shear?
No, I'm suggesting that the shear is supportive of drug dealers.
Oh, not that.
Well, actually, it's a two-way relationship. Baruch Hashem.
Ah,
All right, should we go a little further? What time is it? Okay, we can go further. Meisvei. All right, it looks like we're talking about laundry. I believe that's what's going on over here. And the brisa that talks about all right, Meisvei, let's see. Sifa Leyan. There is a list of items that are prohibited during Shemitah. As we know, the 7th year, you're not allowed to work the land. This year, we're now in Shemitah. If you have any family members in Israel that are in the agricultural industry, either they're not working the land or they've had to go through elaborate halachic mechanisms to enable whatever they're doing, not the time to weigh into the intricacies of that debate. But suffice it to say, Shemitah has a lot of complexity. If you're following the halacha, the Mishnah is laying out the halachas of Shemitah, or the Brisa, I should say. And it says that the Chazal added to the prohibited items, hachal beitzin. You help me out over here. Ornithalgalum. Where's our pharmacist? Where's our chemist here?
It's a plant. It's a
plant.
flowered plant. Yeah.
Actually, Alan, so you have, as far as the shear is concerned, you're our expert both in chemistry and in botany. So shkoyach. So we have ornithagalum, or however you pronounce it, which is a plant, and halainin, wormwood, v'haboiris, and we've mentioned the boiris, v'ha'ol, and ahol, which is aloe.
Rabbi, isn't Shemitah a general rule? What's the difference? What kind of plant or what kind of growth?
It's a good question, actually, but let's see it in the context of the Gemara, and then Bli Neder, we'll look for the source. A good question. Really, I should address it now, but I'm going to be lazy. Hold the question for a moment. So we have these three items. There's an answer, but okay. And we mentioned that all of these items are prohibited during Shemitah. Kibriasa. If you say that boiris is synonymous with sulfur. Kabrisa mi'isa b'shvius. Where does sulfur enter a conversation about prohibited stuff that grows that's prohibited on Shemitah? There's a Mishnah that teaches as follows, or Beryl. Let's see if this gives us any more clarity. Zaklal, kol sheyesh lo iker, a plant that has a root, yesh lo shvius, it's susceptible to the restrictions of shvius. V'shein lo iker, but if it does not have roots, ein lo shvius, the laws of shvius do not apply. Elomai boiris, we now must refine our definition. Boiris is no longer going to be sulfur, says the Gemara. Let's call it ahala. Let's call it aloe. Hold on, that doesn't work. Tanya boiris v'ahala. Our Mishnah mentions boiris alongside aloe. So if boiris is aloe and aloe is aloe, then you're not going to mention the same item twice on a shopping list or on a list in the Mishnah. And the Gemara answers there are two types of aloe. So again, what was the objective of our Gemara here before we get into the details? The objective of our Gemara is to continue to define the word boiris, which is mentioned in our Mishnah as one of the cleaning agents that we discussed its carrying on Shabbos. We need to know what boiris is. Initially, we said virus is sand, it can't be sand, so we said it's sulfur. Then we said it can't be sulfur because this very word virus is listed in a list of plants. And if it was not a plant, it wouldn't fit into a discussion about Shemitah. And so the Gemara ultimately says that virus and is aloe, and ahala is aloe. And if you see the similarity between ahala and aloe, there's two types of aloe. Now, Rebero asked the question. Rebero, your question was, since when are there exceptions for Shemitah? If it grows in the ground, it should automatically and absolutely have laws of Shemitah. And apparently, it's primarily about things that are used for food or things that have function. A plant that has no contribution ostensibly would not have those same said restrictions. And therefore, the Mishnah is being mechadish that although these items are used, or this price, I should say, although these items are in use for laundry, that's considered part of prohibited use on Shemitah. No, hold on. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. But that is the story. So ultimately, what is virus? Virus is aloe. Can you eat aloe? I don't think you should eat aloe, but it has other great uses. Have you heard of aloe in use being used in laundry?
Cosmetics.
Skincare, right? Cosmetics, skincare.
Sunburn.
Sunburn, itchiness.
I think Florida, we have aloe. Aloe grows in Florida.
Yeah, we have it. There's some growing right here. In
Oh, really?
one little plant. It's
We're on the
been knocked
beach.
over a lot, though, unfortunately.
Right.
Enough to break
All right.
off when you sunburn. Rub it on.
Yep. All right,
And
let's
I
do
know-
our. I'm sorry?
No people eat it.
Really?
And eat it.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Very interesting. All right, let's get to the end. Let's finish this paragraph and then we'll call it a successful day because we're going to get to the Mishnah. Ki molia. Our Mishnah mentions among the ingredients listed for laundry, we mentioned kimolia. What is kimolia? Amar Rav Yehuda, shloif doitz. This has another name. It's called shloif doitz. That's what people call it. And literally it means pull out, stick in. And I wouldn't know that if not for Rabbi Steinsaltz. Shloif, I guess actually shloif means like, shloif I think is usually, it's the same shorish as to unsheath a sword. So I guess it means to pull out a doitz, a piece of wood. Ashlag, what's ashlag? Amar Shmuel. Sheltino lechol nechusa yama. We wanted to know what this word is. And we asked all of the seafaring folks. The amaruli shunaga shmei. And the seafarers told me it's called shunaga, or apparently some girsais shunana. Shunana. That's a mistake. Umishtkach v'nukva de marganisa. And it can be found in the shell of a pearl. Umafkile berimtza de parzala, and it is removed with an iron skewer. So in a pearl shell, there's also this substance called ashlag, and it's connected to pearls. Interesting, I believe there's a Jewish last name called Ashlag, right? Maybe it was a new. Well, there you have it. And actually, there's a great praise given to Shmuel for his devotion to figure out the meaning of a Mishnah, to the willingness to ask to see how important it is. Right? We ask sometimes, why is the Gemara so worried about us one word or a precise dimension? You see, Shmuel says, he made it his business to ask every seafaring person to see who knew a little bit about foreign botany and foreign underwater sea life, also that he could have a definition of something in the Mishnah. And that is certainly a special credit and shows us how we could be devoted to our study and to our journey to understand and find meaning and clarity in the study of Torah and the study of the Gemara. As a matter of fact, hold on. Okay, I thought maybe they included it in his biography here, but here they do not. But if you want to see, Shmuel left his native academy, studied at Rebbe's academy. He and Rav were partners. We read a lot about them. Anyways, my dear friends, this draws today's study session to a close. I want to thank you for being here, and together with all of our collective knowledge, wisdom, insight, and intelligence, we've studied and analyzed an entire Mishnah today with Hashem's help on Sunday. The Ezer Hashem, Gesundheit and Freilickeit. We should continue the next Mishnah, and in a day or two, Sunday, Monday, we should already be Messiah Perek Chi. We should already bring the 9th chapter to a close, and then with Hashem's help, we'll be up to the Perek Asiri, the 10th chapter of Masechah Shabbos. So I want to wish everyone a wonderful Shabbos. Once again, prayerful wishes for wellness, happiness, naches, and all good brachas for the dear members of our Chabura and their loved ones. And thank you for being here. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Enjoy an early entry to Shabbos and an early exit from Shabbos, as we're now on the new system. Anyways, Yashar Koyachal, thank you. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
By the way, Rabbi,
yes.
Apparently in Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah, Shlof Dots is mentioned, and it defines it there. Shehu min esef shemeyapshin oto ve'uchatzin bo.
And where do you think they got that from?
What? Where did I get it from?
No. I'm saying most likely. No. What I mean to say is that your citation, which is fantastic, most likely is informed by our Gemara.
Yeah.
But
so I just wanted to tell exactly. So it's a type of grass that they tried it out and they used it for washing.
And it's a cleaning agent. And here's the chiddush that you're adding, that I'm glad you read that, is that not only was it used for laundering, but rochatzin bo makes me think it was used also as a type of soap for a person for personal hygiene. Shkoyach, doctor. Shkoyach, everyone. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Please don't stop. Shalom Ber Chumash. Yes, in a moment to study Chumash. And to our dear friends and the members of the Chabura, please don't stop being you. Keep it up. Yashar Koyach.
Thank you.
Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Shabbos.